Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. If everybody out there can let me know if you can hear me alright, that would be absolutely fantastic. Hello everyone, this is Nelson for GamesMatter, and today I'm here with Will of unTied Games to talk about their feature... Nope. Yeah, just had to pop out the chat. I'm sorry. To talk about their, not feature, but their the featured game of GamesMatter today, which you can go to @GamesMatterHQ and ask for a copy of. Star Reaction HD, which you can see right now. It's a match 3 game done by an independent development studio. This is your first game, right?
Yep, this is our first game. It's on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Android.
Thank you so much. It's on itch.io if you'd like to get it on PC. And yeah, they got match 3 really well. A lot of indie match 3s are kind of limp and a little bit uninteresting depending on which ones you try, but this one was really good. I was really surprised, and really glad to have the developer on today. So how you doing today, Will?
I'm doing pretty good. I was just playing some Dota earlier. It's a really fun game.
The whole Dota thing, running against a wall again and again in the hope that will be enjoyable one day. Is that why you got into game development?
No. I got into Dota a lot later, but I think what influenced me most was probably the Super Nintendo era of video games. Especially
okay.
Mega Man. I really like Mega Man. I'm wearing a Mega Man shirt right now.
Sweet. So, Star Reaction. What's the story of Star Reaction?
Well, Star Reaction technically started back in 2009 when I decided to make a puzzle game, and I had never made one before, and that's kind of why I decided to do it. So I made this really, really basic version of Star Reaction, and it was played on an 8x8 grid, and you couldn't really win, you couldn't really lose, but the game worked. And I just kind of forgot about it for a while, and then in late 2011, when I decided to get into game development with a couple of friends, I decided that reviving it would be a good first project for us.
Sweet. So this was your first project?
Yeah, first official project.
There aren't any matches. So I'm seeing right here the tutorial. I'm still going through the tutorial levels.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about these tutorial levels, because I notice very often desaturate. Very often in game development, you'll get that issue of either telling the player too much or too little. So how did you guys approach your tutorial?
We do the first one. We tell the player too much. So, I mean, the first thing you'll notice about Star Reaction is that there are a lot of tutorials for all the game modes, but you can skip them, which is a plus.
Well, then again, what other game lets you shoot a star with a Gatling gun?
I know, right? It's pretty unique.
Try it yourself.
But that's definitely one thing I wish I could improve on, maybe in a subsequent version of Star Reaction, or maybe even in a sequel, is better tutorials. Basically, I want the player to be able to learn by playing instead of learn by me telling them what to do, you know?
Yeah. So, how did you even begin to get the initial concept for Star Reaction? Like, were you playing Bejeweled? Did you just suddenly think, man, were you just looking up at the stars and think, man, you know what would be much better than just looking at these stars? Shooting one with a Gatling gun.
You know, I don't know where the initial concept came from. I mean, the gameplay probably initially was influenced a lot by Bejeweled and other match 3s. Back then, I didn't even have a mobile phone. Actually, I did. It wasn't a smartphone, though. Smartphone I got, man, must have been late 2010. But yeah, I don't know. I just figured stars are pretty iconic in games. You know, in Mario, you collect stars. In other games, stars are power-ups, you know. So I just
Yeah.
made them stars. And the rest is history.
Interesting. So, did you? So there's how many people working at unTied Games?
There's three of us. Me, I'm the programmer, and I do a little bit of art. Ethan is our artist, mainly, but he can also program, although he doesn't really help me too much with that end. And Charlie is our musician. He does really, really cool music. He did all the music for this game, and he did some really cool stuff for Endless Mode, where there's like 2 tracks playing at once, and then they kind of fade between. It's really cool. We should try Endless Mode later.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh wow. Freeze is the opposite of flare. So I'm getting into color theory. You can cool down and heat up stars.
Yep, this is probably the hardest concept in star reaction, I would say. Some people get it right away, and other people just don't.
When you think about like complexity, like how complex is too complex? What did you learn in this project that going forward you're like, okay, this is something I'm going to do or I'm not going to do?
Well, initially, this is right now we're playing classic mode. In deluxe mode, you can combine 2 of the colors to make an entirely new power. So that's way more complex than this. And initially, we had wanted to be able to combine like 3 or even 4 or 5 colors together. But we decided to cut those because making all these powers, of course, is a lot of work with all the art and sound effects involved, and then the player has to like figure out which one does what, and it just became too much. So we decided to just do combos of 2, and that's where we left it.
What always interests me is how you get a team together, because that's a hard thing to find people that you like working with, and
yeah, for sure,
to continue working with them to actually finish a project rather than make a bunch of prototypes and then move on to the next. Hey, this would be a cool thing to do. So how did you find your partners in crime, as it were?
Well, most of them I met through college. I met
so college
Ethan.
is good for something.
Oh, yes it is. It's very good for networking. You never know who you'll meet there. I met Ethan, our artist, in computer science class. He did an kind of an individualized major, part of which was computer science and part of which was art. And Charlie I had known beforehand. He's my friend's brother, but he also went to college with me. He's a couple years older, though, so we were only together there for a year. And we did initially have 2 other people on the project, but we had to make some rearrangements because they weren't doing anything. There's always people on a project who aren't doing anything, you know?
So how do you deal with that, especially when, for example, it might be a family member or something?
Yeah, they're both still really good friends. It's just, you have to sit down and have a Skype chat with them or something. At the time I was in Japan, so I had to Skype chat. There was no face-to-face involved.
Oh man.
But yeah, you sit down, you have a little Skype chat, you say, this isn't really working out, we gotta, I gave you this task, it hasn't really been done, or it hasn't been done well, But it all worked out. Still good friends.
Bomb diffusion. Did not think that I'd be encountering that in a match 3.
Yeah, this is one of the more unique elements of star reaction. You gotta be really careful with those wires.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
So how did you avoid scope creep?
That's a really good question. Part of me feels like we didn't, because there's so many levels. There's 60 levels in classic mode, there's 60 levels in deluxe mode, and I wish we had kind of either cut some of the levels or merged them to make it easier, because the later levels especially, it took a lot of time to make them.
because it just increases in complexity. You're just layering and layering and layering.
Exactly. You layer your puzzles, and before you know it, you forget how to solve them.
That was an actual thing. You forget how to solve your own puzzles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That must have made testing them a bit more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, though, you can still get silver and bronze medals if you make too many moves.
So once you got the team together, once you sort of found who was right for the project and started going forward, what was the next step? Because when you're on a team and you're dividing responsibilities, for example,